Before we begin, I have just one request. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and let the world outside fade away. Because some stories aren't just meant to be heard, they're meant to be felt. Every whisper, every breath, every sound behind you might not be just in the story. So, are you ready? Let's begin. Titled The Bellman. They say if you hear the bell ring at night, don't open your door. It started with a soft clang, barely audible over the wind that scraped the windows. Ellie Bennett sat in the dim light of her single bedroom apartment, staring at the flickering cursor on her laptop screen. The deadline loomed. The coffee had gone cold, and the words just wouldn't come. Freelance journalism was a lonely hustle, and this piece about urban legends in dying towns was proving to be more curse than paycheck. She was writing about Mill Hollow, a forgotten village at the edge of the Appalachian Mountains. Population 28. No gas station, no school, just old bones and older stories. One legend stood out: the Bellman. Locals whispered about him, said he only came after midnight, said he wore a tattered uniform from a time long gone, and said he carried a cracked brass bell. If you heard it ring 3 times outside your door, you didn't answer. You didn't move. You didn't breathe. You waited until sunrise. No one knew what happened if you did open the door, because no one ever came back to tell. Ellie had driven through Mill Hollow 2 weeks ago. She'd knocked on doors, asked questions, snapped a few photos of boarded up homes and fog choked hills. Most people just shook their heads or slammed their doors. But one woman, an elderly widow named Marla, had invited her in. Marla's living room smelled of cedar and old smoke. She poured strong black coffee and stared at Ellie with glassy eyes. "You shouldn't be asking about him," she'd said. "The bellman comes for the curious. He likes when you speak his name." Ellie smiled politely. "But he's just a story, right?" Marla hadn't smiled back. "He came for my husband back in '86. We lived up near Tallow Ridge, heard the bell 3 times. Frank thought it was a prank. Opened the door." She paused. Her lip quivered. "All I found was his boots, just sitting there on the porch." Back in her apartment now, Ellie played the recording of that interview again. Marla's voice crackled, and behind her words, there it was. A faint bell. Clang. Ellie paused the recording. Rewound. Again, clang. But she hadn't heard it in person, only on playback. She looked toward the window. Wind howled through the alley, trees bent like old men whispering secrets. She brushed it off and got back to typing. At exactly 12:41 a.m., the bell rang. Clang. She froze. It wasn't from the recording. It was outside. She stood slowly, heart thumping. Her apartment was on the second floor, overlooking the parking lot. She peeked through the blinds. Nothing. No movement. Just rain and the distant hum of traffic. She sat back down. Must have imagined it. Clang. The second bell hit her like a gunshot. She nearly fell out of her chair. Not imagination. It was real. It was close. She tiptoed to the door, not daring to breathe. The hallway was dead silent. Not a sound. Then, clang, the third ring, right outside her door. She stumbled back, gasping, 3 times, just like the legend. She laughed nervously. Okay, this is stupid. Maybe someone was playing a prank. Maybe a neighbor heard her story and decided to mess with her. But something felt off. The air had changed. It was colder now, heavy. Her breath came in fog. The hallway light flickered once, then twice, then went dark. And from behind the door, a whisper. "Ellie." She screamed, grabbed her phone, and called 911. No signal, of course. Landline? Dead. She grabbed her keys and made for the back window. It was stuck. When she turned around, the bell rang again. Clang. And the doorknob began to turn. "No, no, no," she whispered, grabbing a kitchen knife and backing into the farthest corner. The door creaked open. A figure stood there, tall, thin, wearing a bellman's uniform blackened with soot and time. A shattered brass bell dangled from his skeletal hand, and where his face should have been, there was only darkness, an endless, gaping void. Ellie blacked out. She woke in silence. No rain, no wind, no bell. The door was closed. The clock blinked 3:12 a.m. She ran to it, locked, dead-bolted. Had it been a dream? Her hands still trembled as she checked every room, every corner, every window. Nothing. No sign of forced entry. No bell. But on her desk, her laptop screen was no longer showing her article. It was filled with one line. Over and over. "You opened the door." Ellie fled the apartment that morning. She checked into a hotel on the other side of town. Called her editor, said she was dropping the story. No more Mill Hollow, no more legends. But when she tried to delete the file, it wouldn't go away. And her phone, it played the bell sound every time she tried to call for help. She smashed it, bought a new one. Same result. She stopped sleeping. The bells rang in her dreams. Sometimes once, sometimes twice, but never three. Not yet. She visited Marla again, desperate. The old woman answered with a trembling hand. He marked you, she whispered. He only rings once at first, a warning, but once he rings three. Ellie grabbed her arms. How do I stop it? Marla shook her head. You don't. Back at the hotel, Ellie tried to write everything down. She wanted proof. Her recorder captured every sound, every breath, every tremor in her voice, until midnight. Then, clang, clang, clang. She didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then the power died. Her laptop shut off, the lights vanished, and in the darkness, a voice, you opened the door once. Now you must walk through. She screamed, ran for the hallway, but the world had changed. The walls were red, peeling, the floor sticky with something black. Doors lined the corridor, but they were wrong, crooked, whispering. She turned back, but her door was gone. Only a bell remained, hanging in midair. It rang once, and the hallway vanished. She woke in a bed that wasn't hers, strapped down, blinding white lights above. Voices whispered behind glass. Doctors, nurses. She's been unresponsive since they found her. Kept saying something about bells and red doors. Do we notify next of kin? Ellie tried to scream, to move, to tell them she was still there, but her mouth didn't open, her body didn't respond. She was trapped inside herself. And in the far corner of the room, a bellman stood watching. And every night since at 12:41 a.m., the bell rings in her head. Once, twice, three times. And still, no one answers. End of story.